Welcome to a technical elective review session and sort of an introduction to the Accelerated Masters program. I'll cover that at the end, but I also will be showing how you might step into that during this discussion when we're talking about technical electives or senior coursework. And does everyone know where they will be in 20 years? Maybe not a clue, right? Welcome. I've already began, but hopefully you can catch up with this. I was just asking if everyone knew where they were going to be in 20 years. No, it may be, pardon? Yeah. So you may want to prepare for a wide possibility or a lot of options and give yourself some flexibility. And for that reason, you might be interested in not just focusing real narrowly on one particular area that you think you like right now. You may want to broaden your perspective or think about more possible ways to spread out what you're learning in your senior year. And what I've shown here is a grid of really sort of four main areas within electrical and computer engineering. We have the computer area, which corresponds obviously to the computer engineering option. A lot of the courses that you will take as a computer engineering student would obviously be in that quadrant. But you've also are taking classes in electronics. You'll take 351C. Is everyone taking that, or have you taken it? And it doesn't matter, but that's required of all electrical and computer engineering majors. And that one's about dealing with transistors, diodes, etc. Then another quadrant is signals and systems, which really sort of follows from circuits 220, the next circuits class, or circuits theory 320A, and then another class in that sequence is really the introduction to communications, which is 340A. So I'm trying to show which classes that you are required to take as an ECE major, what quadrants those fit in, and how those will then correlate to potential elective courses that you will take as a senior. The other quadrant is Electromagnetics and Optics. You sort of say, okay, here's our EMO courses. And that particular class, 381A, is unique to the electrical engineering option. And I'm going to make these notes available. If you want, I'll make those available on my website so that you can refer back to this. You won't have to really make extensive notes or take extensive notes, hopefully. But even if you are in the computer engineering option and you find some of these technical electives that require 381 as a prereq, then you can receive credit for 381A as a technical elective. So you can take all of the required courses for the computer engineering option and the electrical engineering option. If that's not in your option, you just pull those in as technical elective courses so that you can have a very broad experience as an ECE major. What I'm going to talk about then is how these different quadrants give rise to sort of the prerequisite material, or if you really like these classes that I've indicated in these four quadrants that are required, then those naturally flow into some of these other technical elective courses. And I'll start in the computer engineering area, and if you're looking closely at the computer engineering quadrant, maybe you will see that those are in the 70s. 75, 275, 274A, 370, they're all 70s. Well, our computer engineering courses, until we ran out of numbers, are mostly in the 60s and 70s. So if you want to look at a number and see 462, oh, that's probably in the computer engineering area. Oh, 478, that's probably in the computer engineering area. So when I say computer 60s and 70s, that's not 1960 and 1970. That's in the 60s decade of our sequence of 300s and 400s, 500 level courses. Here, if you were in the EE option, that's why EE is following those two top numbers. If you wanted to take 369A, you could. That's computer architecture, or sort of the basic class in computer architecture that naturally follows the 274 and really 373 and gets you into now worrying about how does a computer actually function, the different pieces and parts of the memory, the processor, etc., the bus, how does that all communicate? You may even get some assembly language programming in 369A. You could take that as an EE. It's obviously required if you're a computer engineering option, and that wouldn't count as a technical elective course. 373 similarly, and these are all courses if you're in your junior year now, you might be thinking about taking these in your senior year. These will start in the fall of 2017. That's the tentative plan, is to offer all of these classes as technical elective courses this coming fall, in fall of 2017. Another one is 411, 511, and I'm listing the 411/511 to let you know that if you do take the AMP, the Accelerated Master's Program, you would take the 500 version of that, and you would actually be allowed to count that towards your undergraduate and your graduate degree program. So the AMP, the Accelerated Master's Program, allows you to double dip, and it gives you a head start. It accelerates you through your master's program. And that's why you see a lot of these dual numbered courses, the emphasis on the dual number. 413, and so 411 naturally follows from 330. If you've taken 330, the computational techniques, then 411 is numerical modeling. 413 is a new class. It's not even on the schedule of classes yet, but it will be. We're requesting a classroom for it, and it's web development and Internet of Things. So if you were interested in how do you implement, or how do they implement this Internet of Things concept, maybe I want to take that class. So you might be seeing a lot of IoT antied around as far as the acronyms. You might then want to look at taking 413/513, the Internet of Things. That's still going through the process of being approved as a class, so you may not see it, but if you're interested in that, we can register you into that when it becomes available. You may have to sort of be put on a list, but we can make that happen. Another class is computer-aided logic design. Yes? So yes, we have it as a placeholder. So if you're really paying attention, we have put that out there with a placeholder, but I believe it's, and I will show maybe another way that you haven't seen your curriculum before, but it's a way that I love to look. No, I don't love, but I try to make sure that the daily schedule is somewhat covered, so that I don't have 5 different classes in 1 hour. Then you only really have one choice of technical elective. So the idea is to spread them out as much as I can and as much as we can so that it will work. Now, did I remember to put 413, 513 on here? It's actually at 3 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday as a class. So 413, 513 will be at 3 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay. So we'll get to that, and this again, like I said, that will be available to you. So if you're wanting to plan out your schedule, you can start highlighting on that and say, oh, these seem to work, or these go together as far as courses. Computer-aided logic design, that's the second semester of 274. So that's the follow-on of digital logic. If you like FPGAs and 274, you can now move into computer-aided logic design. If you wanted to know how do these computers network together, or how does that work, then you might want to take 478, 570. How do we network computers? And the next two, you'll notice those are only 500, and so I've underlined those in red. You can take those if you are a senior and have a 3.0. You can take 500 level classes. Obviously, you can also take those if you're in the AMP. If you just try to register for those, if you're an undergrad, you can't just do that. You have to have this clearance to take those, but most of you will be able to take 500 level classes. 564 is advanced topics in computer networks, but you would definitely want to make sure you have the prerequisites before you jump into those. So that's another reason for the red underline. Sort of wake up and make sure that you're okay with that in terms of the prerequisite material. But it's a possibility as far as an option, especially if you're still maybe a year and a half away from finishing, graduating. Maybe you would take 564 not this fall, but maybe next fall after you've taken some other classes, for example. That's why it's good if you're here and maybe you're not even a junior, but now you're a sophomore and you're thinking, I kind of know how I'm going to plan things out. But if you're a junior, even if you're a senior, it's okay that you're here. Maybe you'll learn something about what is available to you. 576A is engineering of computer-based systems. It's how do you essentially design a complex system, maybe with some artificial intelligence, some other smart algorithms, to create a functioning system that you would like. Yes? So the question was 564 and 576A are not showing up when you're searching for them, and that's maybe true because 576A has not been put on the schedule. So that's in the queue. We have to go through. So these are some of the late additions. And so I'm hoping that this information, although it's tentative, this is what we're planning to have happen. So you should be able to eventually get into 564 and 576A. And if you wanted to know more about these classes, which I had all of these tabs. I have no idea now where I'm going. Okay, so here's the main home page of the U of A. Do you know how to find information about the classes from there to do the schedule of classes? It's all of those tabs that I didn't want to link through those or click on those, but you would go down and then click on current students, and I don't know if I have that yet, so I'll go ahead and click on that. And then you would scroll down and go to registration, and then registering for classes, and then go into the course descriptions. Very intuitive pathway, but if you've seen it once, then it's doable. Then you go to courses, and finally you say, show me the catalog. The course catalog now opens up this, and you say, I'm interested in electrical and computer engineering, so you advance the search to the E's, and now you have all of the classes that are still sort of active. And if you were interested in, for example, and you can see, obviously, that 413 is not yet there. It's not in the schedule of classes yet, so you'll have to be patient, but that's forthcoming. But if you were interested in, for example, one of the classes that we just looked at, you could scroll down and say, okay, I'm interested in computer-aided logic design. Now this gives you a description, at least a course description, of that class and a little bit more information. And you can even, if you wanted to, you could view previous semesters of when that was offered. If you wanted to see, oh, maybe I don't know if that's being offered. Oh, it's typically been in the fall, so maybe it will be offered again this fall. That's how you can maybe learn a little bit more about these. And once you've seen that, if you go and say, oh, when was this last taught? Oh, the instructor was Dr. Lysecki. Then you could maybe send Dr. Lysecki an email and get more information about that class if you needed to. That's the computer-related classes in the fall. If you are interested in electronics or biomedical, then those are typically in the 50s in terms of the decade that those appear. 352, I should have qualified that. That's not available as a technical elective for the electrical engineering students or electrical engineering option. That's a required class, ECE 352. And next year, only next year, we will be teaching that both semesters. So if you want some flexibility or if you need flexibility, we're trying to navigate that to where it will be offered more permanently in the spring semester. So this may be the last time it's taught in the fall for a while, is what we're thinking right now. But it will be taught both semesters, but in particular we're planning for the fall. Then there's another class, 446, 546, if you wanted to know how do they make these semiconductor devices. That's a processing class. Now you learn how they are manufactured or how they're created. 450, 550, if you've taken 351C and want to advance and say, oh, how do we build analog to digital converters? How do we build amplifiers? Maybe you didn't get that far in 351C. Now you'll start to see that in 450, 550. In electromagnetics and optics, again, if you're in the CE track, you can take 381A, Introduction to Electromagnetics, as a technical elective. Some other classes that are in that sort of same area is ECE 434, and note that's not a dual numbered class, that's specifically an undergraduate class, and that's electrical and optical properties of material or materials. 459, if you're interested in learning a bit more about optics and you're an electrical engineering student, well, that's the class for you. 459, 559 is fundamentals of optics for electrical engineers. And that then broadens your touch or your reach in terms of your understanding. Maybe you want to be thinking about augmented reality and maybe it involves some optics and you want to start moving in that direction. Or virtual reality, or you want to just be learning more about optics, that might be a class that would be nice for you to take. 486, 586, if you liked to work with circuits, now you're working with a particular frequency range, microwave frequencies, and in 486, 586, you're dealing with passive devices to realize those microwave circuits. So in passive, if you're taking 220, you know, passive devices, you don't have to energize. So you have resistors, capacitors, inductors. So those don't require any external power to make them function. Here in 486, 586, you're not having to energize your circuits to make them work in the microwave region. You're just building these different components that now allow you to function in the microwave frequency range. I should have underlined that. If you were really into 381A or you want to advance your understanding of electromagnetics, 581A is electromagnetic field theory. And in this case, you'll see in the spring that there's a complementary class that follows that. There is actually a 581B. A lot of times you can't read into all the A's and the B's like 351C. You didn't have to take 351A, 351B to get into 351C. That class has just evolved up until to the point now we need another number because it's different than what it was in the past, and now we're calling it 351C. Again, if you have questions during this, please feel free to ask. But signals and systems, again, that's following your 220, 320, 340 sequence of classes where you're doing transforms Fourier or Laplace and Fourier, now you can step in and start using those strategies to work in optical communication systems, which is 43530, automatic control systems, which is an analog control class. How do you make a mechanical or an electromechanical system behave the way that you want it to? In automatic control, you might think of a simple controller is your cruise control on your car. You set your rate at 45 and it locks on 45. If it's not a very good control system, maybe you vary around 45 and you go 40 to 50 and you just are all over the place. But if it's a good controller, it will be locked on that particular set. 530, the next three are exclusive graduate level courses. But again, like we said, you can take those if you have a 3.0 and you have senior standing. There's digital image processing. Obviously, you would probably have to have taken the 429, which is a spring offered class. And if you're taking that now, then you could maybe step into 533. 537 requires 435A. That's another spring class. But again, if you're 3 semesters away from graduating, you could potentially still take these in the subsequent fall. And 538 is radar signal processing. That one may not require as much prerequisite material, but now how do you understand or work with radar systems? Those are now the technical electives collection of classes, and you can see that you have quite a few to pick from. And how many do you need? 7. And you're probably not going to take all 7 in one semester. And you have more than 7 listed. So you have some options, right? That's why they're called electives. Now it's up to you to decide what you want to pick. And again, you might be thinking not real narrow. You might be saying, let me get some breadth in my technical elective coursework. I've already maybe given away, and if you are interested, this is hopefully where you will find the link to this recorded material and the hard copy of these notes if you need that or want to look at that. And so it's just the ECE website, and it's a web page that I can actually put stuff on. Tilde my last name, T-H-A-R. I've already shown this weekly schedule, and I hope then that this illustrates the vast number of options you have to take for technical electives. And ideally, and I've included actually some 600 levels. You wouldn't be taking 600 level courses as an undergrad, but you could if you were in a grad program. But this allows me to see how much overlap we have during the day, and you'll notice that there's a big gap maybe in the afternoons of Tuesday and Thursday, but that's on purpose. We have a department hour between 2 and 3, which is when we are supposed to be having meetings as faculty, and you as seniors have your capstone from 3:30 to 6:15, and so we don't offer any undergraduate senior level courses from 3:30 to 6:15 on Tuesday and Thursday. You wouldn't have too many people taking those if you're in the capstone as a senior. That's why those gaps are there. And that's Engineering 498 for the capstone. But here you can see that you could potentially be taking maybe a controls class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 o'clock. Then you might take, if you were a CE, a computer engineering option, you could take 352. Maybe you take the 459, 559. Maybe I need to make this a quiz. Do you remember what that was? Fundamentals of Optics for Electrical Engineers. That was the 459, 559. But you can start to plan out your classes around what you maybe are taking otherwise and your technical electives. That's what's available in the fall. Then here's what we're planning for the spring. And again, this is a little bit more tentative because it's a year away. But if you wanted to find out a little bit more, you could maybe look at this semester, spring 17 courses that are being offered and try to get a feel for what you might take. 330 is no longer going to be required, and so it will become available as a technical elective course, and I'm not sure if it will remain as 330A. That's why I put that /B. You may have to renumber it. It may turn into a 3-unit class. I don't remember what we have planned. 408, 508 is agent-based simulation. What world is that? Well, you could go and look at the course description, but you could sort of think of, now you're doing simulations where you're just basing these entities on some algorithm. And so they start to communicate. You might think of a swarm of bees or some other physical system, maybe a flock of birds. How do they know that they're needing to fly in that particular pattern? Agent-based simulation may actually allow you to start to simulate agents and see what that looks like as it evolves in time. 462, 562 is computer architecture. That naturally follows from 369A. 466, 566, knowledge system engineering. That's really another artificial intelligence class. And you would need to talk with Professor Marifat to make sure that you could take 462. You could maybe even take 466 and 479 together. 479 is principles of artificial intelligence. Ideally, you would maybe then take 466 after that, but I think the prerequisite structure is the same, so you might be able to take those together. But if you really wanted to get artificial intelligence background, you would be interested in 466 and 479. 471 is fundamentals of information and network security. Has anybody heard of cybersecurity? So that's a big thing. This is a new class. It's being taught for the first time this semester. It should be offered next spring. So if you're interested in cybersecurity or network security, that might be a good class to take. If you are interested in software engineering, sometimes they build apps in 473, 573, but now it's how do you create or build these big software applications? How do you plan those out? What's the engineering involved with a big software project? I've already talked about 479, and 509 is another cybersecurity class. That's concepts and theory. The other one is more based on information and network security. This one is cybersecurity in general. How do you know if somebody's in your system and they shouldn't be? How do you keep track of that? How do you look at the health of your computer system? How do you monitor that? That's then ECE 509, and again, that's an exclusive 500. That's why it doesn't have a 400, and it's underlined in red. You want to make sure that you have the prerequisite background to step into 509. Electronics and bioengineering type classes, again, those are in the 50s. We're trying to resurrect the second semester of 351C, which don't ask me about the numbers. There's a lot of history. 351C used to be 302. Then we had 304. So that's why 304 is the second semester following 351C. That's why it makes so much sense, the numerical. No, it doesn't make any sense. But 304 is the second semester that follows 351C. 352, as I said, will offer that both semesters next year. 407, 507, if you wanted to learn a little bit more about CMOS, there's digital VLSI. How do you do very large-scale integrated circuits for digital functions? That's 407, 507. If you want to know how do you instrument a person, or how do you understand what's going on in that body, or how does electrical engineering relate to bioengineering? 417, 517, now you get to monitor your pulse or whatever they want to put on you as far as a sensor. But you'll see people sometimes walking the halls on the 3rd floor strapped up with things, and you're going, what is wrong? Oh, they're just doing their lab work. So they're monitoring their physical body and then measuring that and doing some analysis, and that's a bioengineering type class. But you can then step into that with your electrical engineering background. Electromagnetics and optics. There's optical spectroscopy, and some of these are actually taught or owned out of other departments. That one's more closely connected with the optical sciences college and probably taught by faculty over there, but it's cross-listed with ECE, so you can take that as an ECE class. And that's what I would recommend you do, is you sign up for the ECE. Don't sign up for the Opti 404. You only have 2 or 3 non-ECE technical electives that you can take as a part of your 7 technical elective courses, or 8, depending on which catalog you are in. If you're interested in solar energy, 414A, 514 is a photovoltaic solar energy class. If you want to know how your cell phone works with respect to antennas, or how do you create new antenna structures, that's 484. We talked about 486 in the fall. Its subsequent class is 488. So that's microwave circuit theory with active devices. An active now says, oh, you're powering these devices, and now you're still functioning in the microwave frequency range or interval. And again, like I commented before, here's the B, which is the 2nd semester of electromagnetic field theory that you would take 581A for. Signals and systems, that's the 20s, 30s, and 40s as far as decades that those are in, and the spring semester is the digital semester. We're either on or off in the spring. Yeah, but we have digital communications. Whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself. 429 is digital signal processing. 435A, 535A is digital communications. And 442, 542 is digital control. That's why I say in the signals and systems area, it's digital in the spring. As we did for the fall, here's what we put together for the spring. And you can see that the 9:30 to 10:45 is a popular time. There's 3 classes, but there used to be even more, so I tried to spread things out a little bit. But this gives you a feel for when certain classes might be taught or plan to be taught, and you can now line out your schedule as far as when you want to eat, when you want to sleep, when you want to work, etc. Any questions on technical electives? Well, if you just came for the AMP, let's talk a little bit about the Accelerated Master's Program. This is a lot of words, but as I said, I'll just try to explain it. The Accelerated Master's Program are for students that have a 3.3 GPA or higher. You don't have to have exactly a 3. You can have 3.3 or higher. But if you have a 3.3 GPA and you're thinking about possibly going to graduate school, this isn't a bad thing to consider. Now in your senior year, you can take up to 4 500 or graduate level classes that will count both towards your undergraduate degree and your graduate degree. But there's some caveats. You have to maintain that 3.3 GPA. If you don't maintain that 3.3 GPA, you still graduate, but you can't take those with you into our master's program. So it's critical if you want to continue on to maintain that 3.3 or better GPA. But if you're comfortably in that range, This is almost a no-brainer in terms of exercising this option. It does have a price. I think it's $85 to apply, and for a domestic student, and maybe $95 for an international student to apply for the accelerated master's program. But you basically save the price of 4 classes at the graduate level by doing it. And you save the time required to take those 4. You don't have to take those 4 in one semester, but you can take those once you are at the senior year in standing. So once you have 90 plus units, you can start taking classes towards both your undergraduate and graduate in the accelerated master's program. What have I missed? Oh, we waived the GRE, so that pays for your application. What's the GRE cost to take? I think it's over $70, so you don't have to pay to take the GRE if you want to get into the AMP. I'm using a lot of acronyms on it. The graduate record examination, that's usually required to get into a graduate program. What have I not mentioned here? It's critical that you meet or set up time to talk to our graduate academic advisor if you're considering this, and it's not too early to be thinking about that. If you're in your junior year, you might be thinking about this as an option. And a lot of you, even if you're in the junior year, you may have senior status. You may already have the 90 plus units. So talk to Tammy Whalen, who can be reached at the following email address, gradadvisor@ece.arizona.edu. What have I not said about the AMP, or what questions remain? Any questions on the AMP? How many courses can you take in the AMP? 4, but you don't have to take 4. That's up to 4. You could take 2. That still saves you some time, doesn't it? Our master's degree program consists, if you do the non-thesis, consists of 10 classes. So if you take 4 of those away, and I apologize for those that are listening, you're not seeing the hand gestures that are going on, but you can imagine that you've now shown 2 hands and you've taken 4 fingers away. You can do this in front of a mirror and try to count the number of fingers that are remaining. We now have 6 courses. So now you have maybe 1 year left to achieve your master's degree by taking 3 classes in the fall and 3 classes in the spring at the graduate level. Yes? So the question was, do we have a curriculum or a plan or program at the master's level? And the answer is no. It's pretty much a smorgasbord. You get to pick from the classes that we offer at the 500 level, and if you're a graduate student, you probably can take some 600 level classes, but most of our graduate courses are in the 500 level. And so you're free to pick from those to fill up your 10 courses, so that's 30 units. We're assuming that each course is a standard 3-unit course, and a master's degree will be 30 units. You can then get 4 of those courses, which is 12 units counting towards your undergrad, and 12 counting towards your grad. So it's accelerating your time in the process. Other questions about technical electives or the AMP? If not, I will stop.